And we're on. What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Brother Phil, Soul of a Nerd. Welcome to my channel, my uh, my my abode, my humble abode of nerd talk in regards to movies, TV, sometimes sports, sometimes social issues of the world, um, spirituality, all that good stuff. But anyway, Soul of a Nerd. Here we are. I'm Brother Phil, and this episode here is gonna be a review. A little behind, but had some other things. Did a little vacation to Florida, Fort Lauderdale to be exact, and kind of threw me off from getting into talking about the Marvel Studios slash Disney Plus MCU series that is now in effect. We're in week 3 actually, and this is Falcon, and the Winter Soldier. I don't use the, so Falcon and Winter Soldier. Episodes 1 and 2. I'm gonna review those today together. So just to give you a little background, I did a WandaVision weekly thing, or I did all reviews of all the episodes for WandaVision, and in that situation as well, I always like to give a review. Not to mention, first of all, wow, look at that! I got a lock. It's kind of looking a little shabby there, but if you're first time seeing this or whatever, new to this channel, I would just ask, check this video out, and maybe some other content I have, and growing the channel. So, soon and very soon, the production upgrades and all that good stuff, formats and all that stuff. But for right now, if you don't mind, go on ahead and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, click like after you watch it, and share it after you watch it, and subscribe after you watch it. But basically, I'd like to give a background before I go into a review of something, so you have a little bit of a premise of what goes on in the mind of this psycho, sometimes nerd individual. The MCU shows, when they were announced, probably 2019. I'm having my breakfast, so to speak. Hope y'all don't mind eating a big container of melon, honeydew, cantaloupe, and watermelon. Hey, I get into stuff like that too. Health and nutrition, fitness. So maybe this ain't such a good idea. Chewing a melon while trying to talk. But to put it briefly, when the shows were announced, the first slate of shows for Disney Plus coming from Marvel were Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, WandaVision, and Hawkeye, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's an animated show called What If. And we're basically getting all of those now, finally. Falcon and Winter Soldier was actually supposed to drop, if I'm not mistaken, it was the fall of 2020 was their original release date. So look at that. It's been 6 or 7 months, behind schedule, if I'm doing that math right. But I'm pretty sure it was like October of excuse me, October of 2020. And actually, I think it was originally going to be August, and then it got bumped back to October These shows started shooting before the pandemic hit, WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. So this show was really supposed to lead off the Phase 4. Let's put it like that. Well, this is what I remember, because I'm an MCU head, first of all, um, which does not mean that I have hatred or any disdain or contempt or, dislike at all for DC. In fact, on my channel, I just did a review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So check that out. But Phase 4, which is going to be Black Widow in May of 2020, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier was going to hit in the summer, which, by the way, to me makes me think there's going to be some kind of linked storyline or characters or elements, because again, these are more the grounded heroes, less superpowered beings, although Bucky has soldier serum in him. But yeah, I don't think there was a coincidence that Black Widow was going to come in May of 2020, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier was going to be the first Disney Plus series in the summer of 2020. I think there's going to be some, they both deal with kind of like I said, the grounded situation of military and government involvement, I guess, basically. And then pandemic hit, so by the summer of 2020, all of that was put on hold. So my point is, this show was shot. I mean, they had to break shooting, but they finished. I mean, again, this was supposed to be the first show, so they were ahead, and it ended up being that WandaVision was completed first, so it got released first. They were able to resume their production, and I'm guessing that's because of some of the locations. Because this show definitely shot in some other countries. So let's get into it. Oh, but my point of that is, I've made it clear in my WandaVision reviews. WandaVision was my most anticipated show when they first were announced. This was the second one. Now I'm a action junkie. I like fight scenes, fight choreography, stunts. I love all that stuff. So you would think this would have been my favorite in a way. And Captain America's probably my favorite character in the MCU. So like that style of storytelling and character. I love Daredevil. So like the grounded hand-to-hand combat, just more humanity to the characters. I'm not gonna say I prefer those, but I definitely have a strong love for those Batman, those type of characters. So, but the reason why this was not my most anticipated show was basically just because, to me, I felt like it was gonna be standard action fight scenes and military and so on and so forth. And that's not a negative thing. It's just I was more excited to see something new. And WandaVision to me was about to be that new thing, and then it was tied to Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is my most anticipated movie by far for Phase 4. So I just felt like there was a lot more newness and potential for excitement with WandaVision and its tie into Multiverse of Madness. Whereas on the flip side, Black Widow, I love Black Widow, but again, not that I'm down on the movie. I can't wait to see it, but I was never super hyped about it because you follow what I'm saying. It's just I can't wait for those movies. That's great, but they're not they're not the highest on my priority because they're more traditional, grounded superhero action fare. So that being said, now that we are here, and then the funny thing that then when you had WandaVision come out before Falcon and Winter Soldier, and for me that bar is high. I loved WandaVision, loved it, just phenomenal achievement for Marvel Studios and for the superhero genre in a television format. To me, like, they took the thing to new heights, the whole genre, in my opinion. Um, much like things like Doom Patrol. I don't watch it, but I can just tell it's a pretty interesting, dope show. And to me, Agents of Shield took the genre, to some level of heights. And obviously the Netflix stuff, Daredevil, Luke Cage. I mean, the bar was being steadily raised, but I think this one, it's like, as only Marvel Studios can do. It's like, yeah, we there's levels, but then there's doing the levels in your own lane. How about that? So, um, so yeah, that made it even more like interesting for me with Falcon and Winter Soldier, to the point where I was almost like, what can this show do? If you were already less of a anticipation for me, but you were going to be first, so it's like you would have had the advantage of being first. Now you not only were not as anticipated as WandaVision, but you're coming after WandaVision. So it's a weird twist of fate that happened there. So there we go. There's my background. Um, I'm a big fan of both of these actors. I think that their chemistry, the portrayals they've given us throughout the MCU so far, have been great. Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, he kind of got a raw deal. I mean, let's be honest, he got lost in the shuffle after Civil War. You know, seriously, like, so that's why this show is dope, because if I thought Civil War is like super way up there for me in the movies, and he didn't even really get a chance to do a lot of acting per se, but I'm just saying his role and his performance and this, what he meant in that movie, to me, can't be overlooked. Like, he's a central piece of that movie, and it's just, I mean, this is probably more of a credit to the writers, and even more so the Russo brothers, that Cap and Tony are the leads. But like I said, he's right there, like this central figure that creates so much controversy, even though we had all these other characters involved. You know what I mean? And he, like I said, he didn't do it much with words, but the moments he's in the movie are intense and, you know, gritty, and just have a energy. I mean, of course, he was dope in the Captain America Winter Soldier. So the point is, this is a guy who has great potential. Even what he did in the first Avenger, I mean, Captain America First Avenger, from when we see Bucky before he becomes Winter Soldier, the guy's got charm and charisma and all this stuff. You know what I mean? Comedic timing and all that. So we're getting all of that now with this new series so far. I mean, just in the first episode, like, it was boom. Like, yeah, it's like having the MCU right now is like, I don't even know. It's like the freaking 2000 to 2002 Lakers, or the San Antonio Spurs, or um Golden State Warriors of the from 2015 through 18, or you follow what I'm saying? Showtime Lakers, the 80s Celtics. It's like these suckers got cats coming off the bench at this point, and just, wilding out, just being sick with it, coming off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Uh, yeah, that's a great analogy. Now that I'm really thinking about it, because basketball, you have more of a rotation in terms of personnel that's in the game. Shout out to well, I'm not gonna shout out. Yeah, never mind. I'm from Cleveland, so uh, we got our NBA title 2016. Thank you, LeBron James. He's the GOAT, by the way. But we're not here to talk about that. And I have videos where I've talked about things like GOAT debates, Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, rest in peace, stuff like that. And there'll be more. Discussions. But I'm not even really in a sports mode. I haven't been in a sports mode for a long time. Hardly even watched. We're not here to talk about that. I'm a football head, so there will be NFL content, I'm sure, eventually. Getting back into it. The So yeah, that's what you're really seeing is, I'm trying to talk it in my mind. I'm still trying to think of another team to make my example that just had a deep bench. But I guess I did a good job. I mean, even the Knicks from the '90s, Um, but yeah, y'all get it. I just always think of that Lakers team with Shaq and Kobe. They just seem to have a lot of dudes, role players, bench players who just were nuts. And like I said, Golden State Warriors recently, of course, and San Antonio for many years. So yeah, um, so we're really getting to see these guys come off the bench and they're taking the ball, running with it, and it's great. On the flip side of Sebastian Stan and Bucky, you have Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, Anthony Mackie. He's like a scene stealer. So he's been shining, honestly. Since we first saw him in Captain America: Winter Soldier, and in Civil War, and in even in to a degree in Infinity War. So that being said, I think this was just a great idea for them to give these guys a chance to shine, and in this storytelling format, where it's a weekly episode. I mean, just like I said, just the idea of it is dope. But I guess it's one of those things where until you get to sit down and watch your first episode or so, then it starts to sink in like, yeah, this was really needed. And it was the same thing with Wanda and Vision. I mean, if you watch my reviews of those videos, of that series, constantly talking about Elizabeth Olsen is like easily one of my favorite actresses right now. Like Scarlett Johansson, uh, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Lawrence. Who else do I really love? I like Tessa Thompson. Um, I mean, and I'm not just trying to name people that have been in comic book movies. I'm talking about generally speaking. Uh, but yeah, the point is, she's just right now. Like, if she does anything else, I'm gonna be checking for her. Just phenomenal. Like, she's way up there. Like right now for me as an actress. And Paul Bettany, just more respect for what it's underrated. So same, and it just like we need to see more of these characters. That's really boils down to. So again, props to Kevin Feige for having a vision. This dude is a visionary par excellence. I mean, just to say, you know what? Hey, we won't give these characters a chance to be seen, you know, since they can't do it all in movies. Uh, Here we go. So, episode 1, really enjoyed it. Starts right off with action. The budget again is with like WandaVision is clearly high, and they're not playing around. You got to see some action sequences that looked really straight up like you. For a hot second, I'm like, dang, am I looking at a stream of a movie that came out already? You know what I mean? So right there we see Falcon in action, working with the. It looks like, I guess he says later on that he has government contracts, so I guess he's acting as a contractor, free agent, almost like a bounty hunter slash rescue mission type person. And mind you, all of this is post blip, which I think that was a given. That most of what we're going to see is going to be considered, well, I call it post snap, really. Post snap and post blip, because the blip is people coming back. I always look at it. The snap is when people disappear. Um, so we're looking at that. So it's in the so we got a 5-year gap basically of so these follow up the end of the movie Endgame basically. They even mentioned that in this one scene, he says something like 3 months ago, half the population returned or something like that. So, um, and also, Black Widow is. I was mentioning. I think there's tie-ins to the show. I don't have any real confirmation or reason to think that. I've just heard other people say that, and it just makes sense. I've heard other YouTubers, people like me, but who may have a little more insight and insider info, on the movies and on stuff like that, who have mentioned that, and it just makes sense to me. Um, and I know Black Widow is like a prequel because the events of Black Widow is supposed to take place between Civil War and Infinity War. So, in a way, that's like 6, 7 years prior to the events of current day MCU. Maybe I'll say, yeah, like 6 or 7. But I still think it's going to be something planted in the seeds of that movie, or a seed planted in that movie that ties to the show. I could be wrong. At this point, Black Widow's coming out in July, which will be, I don't know. I think this show will have already been finished for, several weeks by that time. Well, yeah, definitely. The show's not running until July. It's probably going to be over sometime late May or early May, I should say. I don't think there's as many episodes for this one as there was for WandaVision. So I think it's like 6 or 7 episodes. So, but still, it'll be some kind of connection. I think, maybe not. Um, that's what I meant, though. I just think there'll be some element that's in this show that we're going to see the beginnings of in Black Widow's movie. So the action is dope right off the top, and we get right into seeing what I think is great. And it's like, again, it's not like it's some genius idea, but you just don't know. I mean, you could have predicted it, but I didn't really have a prediction on where this show was gonna like really delve into. Although I had read and heard some things about they're gonna touch on some racial things as far as Sam getting the shield and just how does America perceive him. And then just because of the Winter Soldier, obviously the dude was an assassin for many years, and as soon as he even tries to get himself fixed, at the end of Civil War, he goes to Wakanda. He wakes up to Infinity War. You know what I mean? And then he's dusted. So to me, it's like that was a no-brainer where to go with him. It's like this dude still has to adjust, not only like Steve Rogers had to adjust to modern times. I mean, he's just got to adjust to like he's got skeletons in his closet. He has demons in his mind, so to speak. He was an assassin. Um, he's mind controlled. He wasn't even himself. And then, um, what is his status in society? So I was curious to see what was going to be that with that, but they went into talking about he got a presidential pardon, which would naturally in this world, this fictitious world, be as a result of his role in fighting off Thanos and reversing the snap, and just being a defender of the earth. I guess basically, I'm sure is what that is. And then obviously, whoever it was, whether it was General Ross or Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, whoever, Rhodey, somebody who has some influence can just vouch for him, I guess, and say this dude. Well, I'm sure it's just able to be proven that he had a mind control through Hydra. So he's been pardoned, which is a little convenient. But I mean, who the heck's about to complain about that? It's like, what do you want to see the show where he's still hated? It's like, no, we got to get past that. So, and I'm sure as the episodes go along, it isn't going to be this clean transition. So, but from a government perspective, this is why the dude's able to walk around. That was one thing that was like going to be curious to see, how is he just walking around as a citizen, or what is he even doing? Like I said, if he's not wanted and running from the law or the authorities, then what is he actually doing? So we see that, yeah, he's basically in therapy and he's trying to readjust to life. So I think that alone for the first episode was just dope. I mean, I was drawn in immediately, and I think it's because again, Marvel Studios has done a great job of making us connect to these characters. Period. Period. It's so much more I could say, but it's just as simple as that. Um, to make from the bottom line, as Stone Cold Steve Austin would say, is that we connect to these characters. The actors are phenomenally cast. The writing is, for 90% of it, I would say is just dope. And the concepts of how to tell these stories are intriguing. They're not always, like I said, they're not always like groundbreaking, but they're just. It seems like they're usually just right for what needs to be done, and that's why I'm saying Kevin Feige is a visionary to just be able to do that. I mean, to switch from a WandaVision style show in every sense, like the style of the sitcom and just fantasy, like what the heck's going on here in 30 minutes in a pocket of a city being controlled and all that stuff to just meanwhile, it's almost like on the was that on the Super Friends? Meanwhile at the Hall of Justice. It's like meanwhile over here in the regular old, you know, Louisiana and New York, New Jersey, wherever the heck they're supposed to be, and in other Eastern Central Europe, as they keep talking about in episodes 1 and 2. The rest of the world is still going on, and this is what's going to be very dope for what they have set up for themselves in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is everything at this point for the next foreseeable, I don't know, couple of years, probably 3-4 years of Phase 4, basically. Phase 4, and again, it's not like genius, but it's just brilliant. It's just like, wow, okay, of course. You're going to spend Phase 4 in so many different stories showing the aftermath of having that basically cosmic level, extinction level event. Shout out to Buster Rhymes. Extinction level event, you know what I'm saying? Like in people recovering from it. They touched on at the end of or the beginning of Spider-Man Far From Home. And it's just, it's going to continue throughout these trickling out throughout these shows and movies. So that's obviously going to be a lot of what this show is about. I don't think they're going to just harp on it episode after episode, day in, day out, so to speak. But it's going to be the foundation of the show is post blip. So what I really loved about the first episode, again, was how they gave you the split story of Sam, where's he at, Bucky, where he's at. Sam, you get to see this guy, and then just these are the funny things you think about, because like it is like he was only appearing in Avengers movies. I remember being surprised that he was in Avengers: Age of Ultron, but it's cool looking back on it, because when he was in Age of Ultron, he was talking to Cap about, yeah, I'm not trying to be an Avenger. Like, y'all do some crazy stuff. I'll just keep things holding down here on the ground, if you recall that. And then, so you would almost think, yeah, what does a guy like these guys like Rhodey and Sam do, since they're not literally out here fighting cosmic battles? You know what I mean? Um, so you kind of get a feel for who Sam was when he's not in between movies. This is what this guy is doing, so to speak. Wink, wink. In between movies, he's living this kind of lifestyle where he's got a family in Louisiana that owns a boat, uh, fishing, I guess basically we call it, fishing company, seafood and all that stuff. So we see him with his sister and his nephews. I just thought that was really good stuff. It was, human moments and that connection, that ability to just see these characters um, in another light. So very smartly done, and Anthony Mackie shines in that type of situation. Then on the flip side, oh, plus, I mean, it was cool to see him doing his own thing though at the beginning, where he is running around here on these missions. So I thought I liked that. It like immediately gave him credibility. Like, yeah, this dude is a hero on his own. Like, he's not a sidekick. He literally felt like a lead dude in that first opening scene, and they were smart to put like other people around him, like the soldiers or whatever you want to call them, who were on the ground. The one guy, I kind of liked him immediately. Being his eyes and ears or whatever. Although I kind of there's some things about him that are a little, I'm always looking for the sabotage or the betrayal. So I'm keeping my eye on him. But for the most part, nice character to set up with him, where they're sitting and having tea or wherever it is when they're in the village or the city over there overseas, wherever they are, in like the marketplace, I guess you would call it. And then he's tinkering with Red Wing. Just a cool scene. It like makes him look very uh just a dude who can stand on his own. Like, it was kind of to me like a adventurer, James Bondish, Batmanish. Like, this dude has his own tech. He knows how to work on his own stuff. He's traveling. He's a man of his own uh abilities. Like I said, not running next to Cap or taking direction from Cap. So I thought that was dope way to establish Falcon right out the gate. And then, like I said, seeing him go home to with his family, now it's almost like the traditional superhero with the secret identity. When you see Bruce Wayne in his element and his board meetings and stuff like that, or Clark Kent and Peter Parker at their newspaper jobs. So I thought that was cool. Of course, then they go into showing some things that did touch on, as I said, when I was hearing previews, that there was going to be a little touch on certain issues that exist in the world, and especially in America, and whether they're racially, social, economic class, and things like that. So you saw the situation going through with his sister at the bank, trying to get the loan. Pretty funny scene, and well, not funny, but I mean there was some humor in there with the banker. Basically, the kind of wit with the dialogue, kind of witty dialogue that you expect in the MCU, but then touching on a serious issue of, like, being turned down at the bank, and it's kind of unfair. And like, I got another point I'm going to make later, but about that thing, the racial undertone to it. Then, so I just think there's going to be more to that. I don't think that was just like, you're going to probably see that his home life being sprinkled, or his background, with his sister and his family throughout this show. Or at least, what I'm saying, a few more times. Then you go to Bucky. Now his was actually, I mean, I'm not gonna say one was more interesting than the other, but Bucky's was a little. It really made me think, like, and I watched the episode twice, so the second time I watched it, appreciated it even more. Watching him in therapy. He wakes up from not even a dream, really. It's a nightmare, but it's a nightmare based on reality of what he's done, where you see him, and I thought that was dope because it really threw me off. Like, wow, what am I looking at? And then you realize, oh, this is a flashback, and it was what's the word I want to say? Uh, Not comic. What am I saying? Like, his attire and look was accurate, time period accurate. There we go. To how he looked in 2014 in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. The same hair length and the mask and the arm. He looked the same. And then, you see him committing assassinations, and then ends up killing an innocent bystander because the person standing there and saw everything. So he's in his therapy session. Good scene, little dry wit. And then, like I said, Sebastian Stan and the Bucky Barnes character, if you really think about it, he's kind of I mean, there's a bunch of people in the MCU who are like little wisecrackers. I mean, you had Tony Stark, you've got Doctor Strange, you've got Peter Quill. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like Hawkeye. So it's almost like some people could say, I mean, everybody's in the MCU is a comedian. But this is why, I mean, I call it being a nerd. That's how I sum it up. It's like if you really pay attention to these characters, there are differences. There are nuanced differences and subtle, but some of them not so subtle. Like to me, I mean, you could say Hawkeye and Bucky both have a dry humor, but it's not the same. Like Bucky's is really kind of tortured, like you know what I mean, and it's well done. The dude taps into it. I'm sure they talk about coming from that place every time. Is that's what you have to remember with him. Like he was a Tony Stark esque guy in the 40s, growing up with Steve Rogers prior to going into the military and everything. But it's just like he still has that, but look at how jaded and damaged has been. And the way he described that to his therapist, I believe he said something like, yeah, he was talking to her about. He basically laid it out like he hasn't he hasn't had a chance to do anything. I mean, he was an assassin, and then like he went on ice, so to speak, or whatever. Got his mind fixed, and then he was gone. So he said basically he's been in a fight, like something like he's gone from fight to fight for 90 years or something like that. So profound statement. And this is what I love when you can get into these things where you can write the dialogue that gives this guy a chance to really talk about what should be obvious, but it's been glossed over, so to speak, in all of the movies because you just don't have time to do that. That's what I'm really saying, and that's what you saw with WandaVision in those discussions about grief and about her losing people. So phenomenal job of getting back into that, and let's like really look at this guy. He's trying to do things from a therapy standpoint, to adjust. Then we get into seeing him with his older friend, the Asian guy. I thought that was a cool scene. It's cool seeing them out eating and he's getting a little flirtatious with somebody and so on and so forth. But it didn't take long for me to make this connection when his friend, I forget his name right now, starts with a Y, I think. Yuri. But he made a comment about his son, and it stood out to me just being observant that the guy he killed, the nightmare he woke up from, the innocent bystander, looked Asian. So I don't know how many people, when they saw that, like, made the connection. Probably didn't because they weren't paying attention to whether the guy was Asian that he killed. I did though. Not saying immediately, but I'm saying once the dude said my son was killed, why would you make a statement like, "Oh, my son was killed" if there's not a significance? Because now when he said that, he like immediately, I was like, "Wait a minute, Winter Soldier killed an Asian kid, young guy, a few scenes ago." So maybe some of y'all are like, "Duh, dude," but I'm telling you, some people don't see that quickly. I bet you there's people that watched both episodes and still didn't make the connection. Although I guess there was a scene where he saw the little shrine in the old man's apartment. But yeah, so I was just like, dang, right. I mean, I got the feels right there. I'm like, okay, y'all, this is some good storytelling right here because this is gonna be something. It's gonna be a redemptive, or it's gonna be a reckoning that he's gonna have to have with this old man. And then you're putting it together like, wow, this dude probably sought this guy out somehow or came across him, befriended him, and he's trying to be his friend, making up for what he did to his son. And I've seen this in another show or movie. I remember where somebody did that. Dang it, what was that? But anyway, so it's not the first time I've ever heard that, seen that kind of storytelling or plot device. But I just think it makes sense. Um, Because really, like when that scene happened, when he killed the guy, like it did stand out to me there was an Asian guy. I didn't know it would have significance later on, but I guess because he was in Russia, I think. So I think that's what it was. It was just like I remember literally thinking, like, why is this the Asian dude in Russia, you know? And I just figured they're not wasting. I mean, it could have just been a throwaway guy to kill in a scene, but I just felt like there was something to that because the guy was shaking his key, and the scene was kind of drawn out for him to kill that guy. That's what made me think that that character is going to have some significance. I literally felt like that, and I was just, and like I said, there's an Asian guy in Russia, so. But again, I'm not saying the minute I saw the older guy I made that connection. I didn't. It was only when the guy immediately when he said my son was loved this food and he was killed or whatever. That's when I was like, oh shoot, this dude killed this guy's son, man. So stuff like that is really intriguing stuff to throw in episode one. And then we also got this introduction of this, um, what would you want to call it? Militant, militia, whatever type group, which, like I said, Sam's military sidekick guy, he introduces us to that. Let me also throw in here, we got to see Rhodey pop up at the ceremony where Sam decides he doesn't really think he should be running around trying to be Captain America. I love that. Like I said, I love that whole angle. And he's just like, he donates it to the Smithsonian to just say, hey, there are heroes out here anyway. We're going to keep being heroes, but this man's mantle, this man's legacy should just be, held intact for being his own. And, it's not about me carrying on his mantle. I like that. Again, it's cool to see Rhodey up in there, and they had a little conversation. I thought that was a good conversation to kind of quickly get our answers to why we are where we are. And by the way, there is supposed to be a show coming out with, centered or focused around Rhodey called Armor Wars, which I guess is going to be about fighting over probably Tony Stark's tech and the suits and all that stuff. So let's just get through this as far as episode one. So that's pretty much what we got. To me, you got back, human element, just day-to-day life stories of how both of these guys are. Falcon is now a pretty, he's a respected hero. He's out here doing things, and Bucky's just trying to recover his life. And then we get a scene at the end with the introduction of a new Captain America, which was freaking hilarious. I mean, again, I knew it was coming because even from previews, they show a guy running in a Captain America suit at a sporting event, high five in a band or whatever. So, I mean, I don't think that was a mystery. The guy that I am, I follow movie and TV show news and stuff, and I knew that they were that they were casting a guy to be, they call him U.S. agent, but I guess from the comics, the guy is called U.S. agent. So, that's who this guy is. And again, I'm not acting like I know a lot about that, but I guess in the comics, it's some guy who more or less replaces the, Captain America, or, substitutes for him. So that's how episode one ends. Great ending. I said it wasn't a surprise, so to speak, but for somebody like my lady who's watching it with me, she's just like, what? And then her and her son were cracking on the way the dude looked. And he's just like, I mean, he got a big chin. But yeah. So, they're just like, what the heck? So, and that's the reaction you're supposed to get from those who aren't deep diving into the behind the scenes news and knowing that that's coming, So that's how the first episode ends. So let's jump into episode two. First of all, like on a scale of 1 to 10, I give episode one like an 8. Very, very freaking good episode. Got pretty much anything you could want. Good action, good intrigue, good foreshadowing, getting the ball rolling of things to come, you know what I'm saying, to set up okay, where are we? There's going to be some stuff going on. And then also, like I said, making us reconnect with these characters, where they're at right now, and get an idea of where they might be going. Like I said, cinematography, action, special effects, all that stuff, performances, acting, casting, solid. I like the woman they have playing Sam's sister. Seeing him be like playful and having a sister to kind of banter with was good. Um, so episode 2, oh yeah, I said 8 out of 10. Episode 2, um, you know, there, I mean, there. Episode 2 is just a great step up from episode 1. They're not really gonna be playing around keeping this thing moving and interesting. So in that respect, it reminds me a lot of like the Netflix series, but it's almost like they're a little bit learning from Netflix because Netflix shows, I'm talking like the Marvel ones, they a lot of them suffered from slow moments and dragging scenes and things like that. More or less the episodes themselves as they got into the middle part of 13 episodes. But just even within a show, there were, you know, kind of hit and miss moments. When I think about like Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, definitely Iron Fist. I mean, Iron Fist had a lot of unnecessary, poorly crafted scenes. I always think about the one where he jumped in the car with, was it with Ward? No, no. He had just got back in town. Like he's still barefoot and all that stuff. And he jumps in the car with somebody. And he like basically hijacks the car and he's like making them drive all through this parking garage. That scene was way too long, and it wasn't even effective. Like it would have been more effective to make it shorter. Like the longer it went on, the less effective it was. But anyway, so things like that. Luke Cage, they had scenes like that. Daredevil and Punisher are probably the only ones that really didn't suffer from, you know, scenes within each episode where you were just like, come on, y'all could have shortened that. Anyway, so they go into, and I just watched this yesterday, and yet I'm forgetting some things. So I'm gonna try to be brief with episode 2. Episode 2, was well. Let me get to this point now, and this help the flow in my mind. I made a mention a few minutes ago, or several minutes ago, about a racial element, and I said I'm going to touch on this later. So we saw that again in this episode with um. Okay, well, okay. I'm jumping ahead. So Sam and Bucky, they've already had an encounter with this new Captain America, and they're realizing that they need a little more knowledge of what's going on. You know what? I gotta backtrack. It just doesn't make sense for me to skip past this. Let's just jump into our new Captain America. So, opening scene of this episode was pretty, again, well done. Like he's in the locker room. You get to see him prepping to go out there for his first appearance. One of his first appearances as Captain America, and it's at a looks like a college football game or something like that. And then that was a scene I talked about. He comes running out to see the crowd. He high fives the band and gets on a podium and has a little speech. So it's really funny, and I don't mean ha ha funny, but it's amusing. It gives you a tickle. You know what I'm saying? To just see, and I'm sure this is the intended purpose of just what the government will do. Propaganda, basically. It's like the same thing all over again. And I'm sure that is the point, the irony of read the propaganda again of when Captain America first got a super soldier serum, and then they wanted him to run around the country doing reenactments fighting Hitler instead of actually going to war. So you got to see that, and I just thought that was a well done scene because it's like you're really looking. I found myself listening to this guy talk to whoever was his girlfriend or whatever, and then his buddy from the military comes in. So you do get some background. The guy is a decorated soldier, so he ain't just some guy off the street. I get the impression though he has no super soldier serum because he has this interview and they talk about and they're showing clips of him and he's got a peak intelligence, peak physical conditioning. You see him working out with the throwing the shield and all this stuff, but I don't think he has a serum. It doesn't seem like, unless I missed that in the dialogue. But seeing him talking to the woman who in the locker room who was like his girlfriend, wishing him luck, and then his friend from military comes in to talk to him. It was weird because I found myself like, obviously you got to get to know this guy, but it's like the whole time I'm just side eyeing him like, man, freaking fraud, So I think you're supposed to like be disliking him all the while that you're getting to know him. And I think that's kind of weird. I mean, it could be just me, but it just feels like if that's what they wanted, they did a great job of it. So it's like you are immediately biased against this guy. But at the same time, I'm realizing he's not a bad guy. The dude is asked to take on a role, and he's trying to do his best with it. And he thinks he's doing the right thing, and he's really interested and passionate about doing it. That's what I'm saying. It was like a good job of like capturing his energy, but as I'm watching it, it's still a little bit of a I'm not feeling you, bruh, kind of feel. So, and as the episode continues, it's just like constantly. So I think again, it's funny and they write some things that are a little comedic in that regard because Sam and Bucky's attitude towards him is like that. It's just like you just see this tension of tolerating, and that him and his buddy, as you see later on, it's like a real kind of a condescending, maybe unintentional, uh, kind of smug, you know what I mean, almost oblivious behavior or mentality from those guys. But it kind of makes sense. It's just hilarious because imagine if you're not super powered, but you've been in the military, so you have something going for you as a hero, and then somebody hands you a little bit of authority, so to speak, or you know what I mean, a little bit of prestige, and here you are right next to some guys who literally are Avengers, so to speak. I mean, Bucky's not an Avenger, but you know what I'm saying? And you're trying to like be diplomatically humble and friendly with them, but you're just coming across like a freaking mark for yourself, really, and just a clown. So that part I really love the dynamic of that in this second episode. So the point with that is, yeah, Bucky and Falcon track down this group, smash the flag. And then they go that whole scene. This is another thing I was thinking when I heard about this show as time went on, especially when I watched the first episode. I said, you know what I'm thinking? This is going to be like a kind of a Lethal Weapon. I'm sensing like a Lethal Weapon kind of thing. I should have mentioned that about episode one. Is that seeing Falcon having like a home life, and then Bucky's got this like loner life. It's almost like in Lethal Weapon. Murtaugh, family man. Riggs is a freaking loose cannon. So I kind of was thinking that it was going to be that kind of dynamic for this show, and it still may be. But the thing is, they get to where they are when they track these people down in Central Europe, and they're like, bantering again as they always do, and it didn't seem like it was too silly or over the top. It was standard action, and it's believable based on these two guys' personalities trying to get closer to what's going on with these people. Skip ahead. So we get to a point where they have an action sequence, and I thought it was a dope scene where Bucky, you get to see him running with that super soldier speed, and which is a good reminder because again, he does have a serum in him, and he does have I always took it like he's not quite as strong or fast or whatever as Cap. Definitely not as fast because I think about the scene where they're running in Wakanda, and remember Black Panther's freaking fast as heck too. Some of that based on the dang, what is it called? The herb, the it has a name for it though. Anyway, so Bucky's pretty fast too, and you see that. Um, and he jumps on his trailer of a truck and he busts the door open and he sees all this stuff in there. And then there's a girl like looking like she's hiding. And again, I said to myself, I said, this girl ain't no freaking hostage. This girl ain't hiding. She about to turn on your ass. And as soon as I said that, she cracked this little devious smile and, punched, knocked him all the way out of the vehicle. So I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So chose this unassuming looking female to be this character. She puts the mask on. And then they all had these masks, whatever. So, that scene was great. Another great action scene. Nothing stupendous, but served its purpose. But what it does is it leads us then to new Captain America. I'm trying to remember his name right now. Jack. Oh shoot. I know his initials are JW. John Wyatt. Anyway, he and his little sidekick, his buddy from the military, show up, and that cracked me up. I didn't know they was going to do that with him. So he's got his little blue suit on to match, and it's a nod. I'm sure this some of y'all who go way back, and I could be mistaken, but it looked like 100%. It was a nod to the actual Bucky Barnes uniform from the old Captain America. It may be in the comic books, but again, most of my references is always cartoons and live action stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and reruns, 90s. So I remember there was an old, like, I forget what they call it. It's like still animation, I guess. Like you literally were just looking at still pictures, and then they'd slide to a new still picture, and then slide to a new still picture with a narrator, and it'd be still shots of pow. Like it wasn't even animated, and it was a Captain America cartoon. Probably again created in the 50s or 60s. It was in color though, so I don't know if that would be 60s. Anyway, but there was the character Bucky Barnes. I remember he was Captain America's sidekick. He was like the Robin to Captain America's Batman, and the dude had on a blue suit and it was like a double-breasted thing with a buttons on the side. So it looked like this guy, the black guy who's the new Captain America's sidekick, he looked like he had on a uniform like that, and I think that's just hilarious. Easter egg, wink, wink. So they show up to kind of help out, save the day, and basically they don't even match. So basically, the people get away. Falcon, Winter Soldier, and these dudes are left alone. I mean, Sam and Bucky end up on their own. I'm not going to go into details. Basically, Sam flies down and tackles Bucky to save him from something. I forget. And they roll away. And then the other two dudes just basically get their asses kicked and get left. So they get their little military vehicle coming to pick them up. Yeah, they showed up on a helicopter, by the way. So again, it's like these dudes are showing up in a standard military vehicle, just looking real average, just dressed up, And so they now have a army vehicle, Jeep or whatever, driving them, and they show them pull up on Bucky and Falcon who are walking, and they're like trying to offer him a ride. And the dude is doing a good job. Like he's trying to be like he's the leader, and it's just like, dude, you're trying too hard. And he wants them to get in, like we need to team up, blah blah blah. So they get in finally, and they're having this conversation. Just a hilarious golden conversation between these four people. And like I said, the black dude is trying to like insert himself, and he's like, "Yeah, to be honest, you guys got your ass kicked." And it's just like, "Will you shut the hell up?" It's just hilarious. So at one point, he says his name. Like Falcon's like, "And who are you?" He tells him his name, something. So like at one point, I think he says something like, "Man, if you're gonna keep doing all this talking, you need to be more than just blah blah blah, whatever the guy's name is." So he tells him his name is Battlestar, and and they're like, Battlestar. And right there, Bucky's just like, stop it, G. I mean, it's like it was so hilarious. It's like almost like, yeah, you know what? I've had it. That you're going too far now. I can't take any more of this. You got a freaking nickname and it's corny. Although, I mean, I don't think Battlestar's a corny nickname, but in the context of that conversation, yes, it's kind of like Battlestar. So he's like ready to go. And so I just loved it because it captured this is the energy. Picture if you're Bucky and Sam. You don't have time for these dudes talking about, hey, I'm Battlestar. It's like, are you kidding me? Get me the heck out of here. Because I guess they were trying to talk about collaborating. And at that point, he's like, yeah, never mind. This ain't going to work. So now, fast forward. So now they've discovered that these people have super soldier serum to be able to fight them this way. Like the woman who beat up Bucky, basically. And they're kind of like, Falcon's kind of like, wow, I mean, how are we supposed to get intel to figure out what the heck's going on with this? And then Bucky's kind of telling him, well, I have an idea of where we might be able to get some information. Fast forward to where I was trying to get to a few minutes ago. So now they go and find this old man who was secretly living. I mean, he's living somewhere, but he was secretly a super soldier at one time. This was actually a very profound piece of history to insert in the MCU. So what we find out is that there's an older black guy who, when Cap went down in the 40s and it was on ice and presumed dead, they didn't stop these experiments. And I mean, we all know that because in the MCU continuity, Bruce Banner's accident that turns him into the Hulk came off of him unknowingly experimenting on super soldier serum formulas, but he was just more or less dealing with gamma, and so that's what happened with him. But you know, and that's brought up in, well, it's brought up in the Incredible Hulk movie. You know, and they start injecting Blonsky with the stuff, which brings about the Abomination. So, which I can't wait to see them bring him back, especially if it's the same actor and everything. I mean, because he's not dead, and I've heard he will pop up in the She-Hulk series. So yeah, he So what we did was what we found out is we had a guy who was given the serum, you know, experimented on, and then he goes out and fights missions, so on and so forth. But he said, you know what happens when he came home from fighting these wars and missions, he got thrown in jail for supposedly doing something illegal. So he was like a scapegoat. So right there, to me, it's like there's some illusion or hinting or life imitating art or something like towards the Tuskegee experiments that were taking place on black soldiers. Look that up if you don't know about it. And just basically, even if it's not that specific, it's just the racial injustice, so to speak, that's been a result or has been inflicted upon black soldiers in particular when they fight wars and, you know, don't get a hero's welcome, you know. So my point there is tying that one with the bank loan situation. I will say this. On the one hand, I take my hat off to the MCU for not shying away from such a topic. You know, they touched on it and were upfront about it in Black Panther as well. And you talk about colonization and, you know, stealing artifacts from African lands and things, and then putting them in museums and celebrating your greatness for having them when you probably killed people and stole it from them. And then colonization period. I mean, they took it there, like the colonization of people to be moved into Africa, and then I mean from Africa into America, in the whole slavery and so on and so forth. And that, the thing is, Wakanda was a land that never got colonized, never had any European influence. So that's major. That's not a small deal. Like Killmonger's position, he wasn't really mincing words or being subtle about it. It's just, the movie wasn't 100% like this big racial um, story, but it was. I think it was well done, fairly prominently. So that being said, again, I take my hat off to them bringing it up in this series, which to me is it's like again, to me it should be a no brainer, but you just never know how a corporation like a Disney or an individual like Kevin Feige or whatever or Marvel Studios as a corporation would want to even try to deal with this, if at all. Marvel Television, which is a different arm of Marvel, who did Luke Cage, they touch on this stuff. To me, it's just like it's your responsibility to do this. You know what I mean? Like as a black man, not only do we want to see ourselves, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm just saying, not only do we want to see ourselves, well, not only do I want to see ourselves presented, but present it in a way that makes sense and tell the stories that are relative. I mean, yes, there's more to us than that, but it would be disingenuous to me to just dodge around those things. There's ways to do that and tell a story and still, I mean, because see, this is where you get those people who on the social media and internet online world who the talk about SJW agendas and they can't stand it and they're just this, that, and the other. I don't give a crap about that. You know, yeah, keep complaining, keep, keep bitching and whining, because to some extent this crap's not going anywhere, and I'm all for a lot of it. So representation, diversity. I mean, some of these little terms are bullcrap. Black Lives Matter and things like that. I don't get into that labeling and these catchy propaganda agenda terms and ideologies. But the fact that black characters, let's just continue talking about this genre, should be represented, and it should be represented in a dignified way that speaks to their experience. That's how I call it. Don't slap a label of diversity or inclusion. It's just like tell freaking real stories. What's so hard about that? That way it doesn't have to feel like it's a racial pandering. It's just like tell it like it is. This is a lot of people's reality and acknowledge it. You're already doing it in a fictional way anyway. So it's like, what can you really complain about? It's not like these suckers about to make a biopic or make it try to look like it's literally the Black Panthers or Malcolm X or somebody. It's just like it's a superhero show. We're gonna sprinkle some reality in here. They do it all the time anyway, right? If you can do Hitler for World War One in Captain America, the First Avenger, why can't you be real about what's happening now? Because there's some, atrocities currently. But because it's America, people are so defensive. They don't want to look at themselves in the mirror or look at the country in a mirror and say, you got some problems. So that being said, and it just makes sense built around a show about Captain America's legacy, so to speak, with the red, white, and blue and the flag and everything else. And heck, Captain America's character himself, which was so dope about him, is that he wasn't a milk toast cook, Boy Scout patriot of a character. Like he was pretty controversial, and I like that. But he was still, always for the good. So that being said, I appreciate them touching on these issues. What I will say though is, in a way, like they are being a little safe with it. The bank loan thing was probably a little better. It was more subtle, and I think having his sister there helped. But to be honest, this scene with this soldier, and maybe they're gonna have more to it, this ex super soldier. As the scene was developing, I'm just like, oh wow, this is interesting. And I'll be honest, I read an article about this particular, subplot storyline before I saw the episode. So it was earlier yesterday, and then I saw the episode in the evening yesterday. So I had my hopes up that it was going to be a little stronger, I guess. In reality, it was a little weak. I mean, you talk about they hinted at it, like super hinted at the fact that when he came home, he was thrown in jail and treated blah blah blah, without really making it like it's because he's black. Like that's so not, and it's almost like, okay, the first time I let you get away with the subtle racial undertone with the bank loan thing. This time, come on, y'all. This is the second episode. Y'all had a chance to build, and now you're still being subtle, and it felt even more subtle, you know. And then, of course, they follow that scene up, and this is where it's like, I can be honest, like I don't always just love everything Marvel does. The scene after that, so Bucky and Sam are outside. They come out of the house. It's a hostile encounter. The guy kicks him out of the house. He don't want to talk about it. Oh, and I do think it was dope that they're saying this old dude fought Bucky back in one of these wars. He said Korean War, I think. So he fought him. So he gave him a fight. So he's a super soldier. But he's an old man now, and he's just trying to live a quiet life off the grid, I guess, basically, because of how poorly he was treated. And like I said, I'm sure they're going to tap back into that. They have to. So they still have potential to make this thing right in the overall scheme of the show. But for this moment in this episode, since it's all I can do is a week by week episode review, I just felt like that scene, it could have been so much better. Like, in fact, it didn't hit the mark for me. It was just there, and it was like, it was interesting. It was more interesting the fact that this happened than the fact that, wait a minute, dang, that's messed up. They treated this guy like, you know what I'm saying? So if y'all were trying to make a statement about him being a black super soldier who got treated wrong, and it has to be what it is. It's not coincidence that the character's black. So, and it would make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? You think a black soldier, period, got any respect in that time period? And no, they didn't. And not as a super soldier. They'd have been much more prone to let this sucker be experimented on. He said he was being experimented on when he came back and all this stuff, and then tossed aside, basically. That sounds exactly like what would have happened if you're realistic about American history. So my point is, instead of just having this dialogue, I mean, he should have hit harder with I would have preferred them be more in your face about the racial component. But even as I'm saying it now, I guess you got to kind of look at it like, as I just mentioned, these people who are so offended by the mention of acknowledging racial injustice now, which is so ridiculously backwards and stupid in this country right now. Like I said, you try to create a term SJW so that you can mock it. You know what I mean? The minute you can come up with a way to draw the attention away from the issue, focus on something silly like giving somebody a name so that you can now make fun of them, you know what I mean? It minimizes the validity. It tries to minimize the position or the movement or the purpose of whatever that is. And it's been done. I mean, it's being done with the kneeling for the national anthem in the sports, all that stuff. It's easier to call people names than to try to address what the heck it is that they're upset about. So, as I said, I can get into a lot of stuff here on my channel, but let's move on. So, I just feel like, I guess in that respect, they didn't want to be too in your face or, want to beat anybody over the head with it. So I guess I kind of get that. I just feel like it still could have been done because, like I said, in Black Panther, I think they did it really well. And again, this is just one episode, so maybe it's going to come up again and be addressed, which it probably will since Falcon is black and it's going to keep coming up. I mean, again, when they showed up in this city, on the street, walking down the street to get to this guy's house, and there's a kid, and he's like, "Hey, there's Black Falcon," which is funny because when I was growing up, again, it's like little Easter eggs that Marvel does. I did remember the guy's name being Black Falcon, and I thought, did I make this up? Like me, I have older brothers, like 7 and 11 years older than me. So a lot of my superhero stuff was introduced from them. I'm talking when I'm like 6, 7 years old. I've got uh, well, maybe younger than that. Like, yeah, 5, 6, 7. So that gives me a 14 and a 17-year-old brother. So they're now passing me down, basically. 17-year-old brother, and I'm like 7 years old, 6 years old. I'm getting his hand-me-down toys, that kind of thing. And so Black Falcon, still have an action figure of him, which is so funny when I think about that. His design from the comics, you know what I mean? It's very visually, it's dope. I always loved the visual with the red and white and the mask and his hair's a little at the top. And we had that little action figure where it had a little curly textured hair. I mean, it wasn't like textured, meaning like Barbie, but it was plastic. But they tried to make it look like a black person's hair. So props to y'all. I think that was Mattel that made those. When I leave from this, I'm gonna have to go to one of these old school action figure stores and look at those. But anyway, so yeah, I remembered him being called Black Falcon when I was a kid, and then there was Black Vulcan in Super Friends. But anyway, so he comes up to the kid and says, "So I'm Black Falcon, what? Because I'm black?" He's like, "It's just Falcon." And the kid's like, "Well, my dad said it's Black Falcon, something like that." And he said, "What are you, black kid?" Then. Some people may be like, it was a little corny, a little throw in. I actually appreciated that little dialogue. But again, I guess I will say it's like passive aggressive, maybe, because it's like, I mean, as I'm thinking about it right now, as I'm talking about it, it's like their level of trying to be subtle, but it's so on the nose, is a little like. So he literally has that conversation about being black, walking into the house with the guy. He doesn't know the guy's going to be black. Goes in and sees this older black guy, tells a story about how he's mistreated as an ex super soldier, and to the point where it's not even talked about, it's secret. And then, but they don't really just be blunt about the fact that he was treated this way because he was black. Then they're walking out, and then I think Falcon says to him, "Man, how could you not tell me that there was a super soldier, there was a black super soldier 40 years ago, whatever, whatever." Yeah, I think he did say that flat out, so there's that. Then, this is the point I was getting to. They're having this, heated discussion, not an argument. This was really weak to me. I'm gonna be honest with you. Cops pull up and they're like jumping out and they're all in Falcon's face. And he's doing this. It's cool. I'm calm. You ain't, we just having a conversation here. And then like, well, sir, I mean, we need you to, like, is he bothering you? Asking Bucky. It's just like that didn't come across realistic at all. Like, are cops really gonna roll up on a black guy and a white guy arguing and just start asking the black guy, is he bothering the white, and have to ask the white guy, is he okay? Does he? I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because some of my black people who may be watching this might be like, yeah, bruh. So I'm not trying to cover for the cops. I'm just saying that scene just didn't seem realistic. Like, I thought if you want to do a scene where Falcon gets racially profiled or something like that, you could have went about it in a better way. That's really what I'm saying. I definitely could believe they would profile him on something, but that scene, and again, it was too convenient, I guess, just to the like I said, it was like a three punch, a 1, 2, 3 punch for that to happen in that sequence. That, all of a sudden, what are the cops even rolling up for? You know what I mean? And then it's like 3 cars rolling up, and for these guys having a conversation in the street. It just didn't make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense, but I'm saying it doesn't make good sense, and it wasn't well done, in my opinion. But, you know, eh, well, I don't want to make excuses for them, but they are just trying to get what they can get into this one episode. And again, they're trying to touch on an issue. So in that respect, I commend y'all for trying to touch on an issue. It just was not very good execution. There we go. Great concept, poor execution. So then, eventually, suckers figure out that these guys are Avengers. One cop's kind of whispering, those are two Avengers. Which, again, I'm just like, the whole thing was just weak. Poorly, I'm going to say poorly, but not very well executed. And then they apologize, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it was like they were trying to. The scene was being shot or trying to play out like it was supposed to reflect. A lot of us have seen it when we're on our phones, on social media, all the videos that get shared where there's always a black, well, not always, you know what I'm saying? In these situations, there's a black male who's trying to sit here and say to the cops, hey, I'm just having a conversation over here, and the voices are raising and the tensions are rising. They try to depict that, and it just didn't feel right. Because to me, it's almost like if I'm Falcon and the cops roll up on me, he wasn't even angry enough yet to have that attitude with the cop. I mean, I don't know. It just his body language and demeanor and tone didn't fit the scenario, in my opinion. I'm talking about Falcon, and the cops really didn't either. And just the whole scenario of them rolling up on him and the dialogue of him saying, "Is he bothering you?" I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Y'all could have said it could have just been done differently. Like it would have made more sense if they'd have rolled up and just focused so much on Sam instead of Bucky, and just that would seem more. But like the moment the dude asks Bucky, "Is he bothering you?" I was just like, "Come on now." Like I said, I don't know if cops are really that pansy in catering to a white dude in a situation like that. I'm not saying they aren't, but is that the one? It has to happen sometime. But that's not the one. When you have one moment to put it on screen, do you use that type of situation? Because it's really more prominent, in my opinion, that it's like they will pretend the white guy's not there because they don't really see any problem with him. Or maybe they would have it where they're asking the white guy all the questions instead of respecting the black guy and just say, "Hey, I can answer these questions for myself." That's what it would have been more impressive to me if they'd have just kept asking Bucky, like, "Was there a problem? I mean, are you guys?" And then he'd be like, "Why are you asking him? Like, you can ask me if that would have been better." Wow, you feel me? Hey, in the comments, tell me if you agree with me on that. So there we go. That's that scene. But again, props for touching on such an issue, and I hope and expect to see more of that. What happens after that? Let's see. So we get into so yes, then they find out that Bucky has a warrant for his arrest, which I found that an interesting irony. I think that should be noted. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be something ironic. Again, y'all are looking at Falcon, and you were trying to treat him like there was something, like he was the one out here, maybe a threat, so to speak. But you end up having to arrest the white guy. So off of like a parole violation because he missed his counseling session. So we get back to a precinct or whatever, police, whatever. So the scene where the counselor's talking to both Sam and Bucky, that was in trailers for the show. I don't have much to say about that. It was cool. Nothing special. Just again, the guys have good chemistry, and there was some funny parts to it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Good scene. I like the lady that's playing that role, and her dynamic with them is well done. But so from that point, they move on, and I mean, in a way, that felt like a throwaway. Like I don't even understand why they would have forced Sam to do that. Like what? Like from a practical perspective, what the heck? And I have to watch it again. Maybe they said it, but I was like, what were they trying to accomplish? Like, why did he now need to sit down with him? Oh no, no, I do know why. Freaking new Captain America showed up. That's right, he showed up to bail him out because he needs them for his mission. So now he's like pulling rank and trying to show, hey, see, I can pull strings around here. That's what it was. And so I guess she said they both needed to have a little powwow or something with her. Probably mainly Bucky, but brought Sam in too before she can release them to go do something. Because this dude, I have to remember, he works with the government, whereas So it's like they probably had to put them through a psychological profile before they be authorized to do something on a government mission or government led operation operative. So that I guess does make sense. So then I forget the dialogue there, but well, no, yeah, they go outside, yeah, and Bucky and Sam are like, "Look, bruh, we're not rolling with y'all." So, to put it bluntly and shortly, so this is basically the end of the episode, if I'm not mistaken. So then they're like, trying to figure out, okay, what do we do next? Since I can't get any information out of the old man, which, like I said, hopefully he pops up again. I hope that's not just a one and done thing, and they feel like, well, check that off the list. We touched on racial issues. But the bottom line is, the ends up saying Bucky's hints that there's somebody else who knows as much about Hydra as I do, and that would be Baron Zemo. So, actually, his name was Helmet Zemo in Civil War. So Zemo. So that's how the episode ends. They decided they're gonna go see him, which is a risky thing. So it's going to be interesting. Is he going to be able to do something, manipulate and tap back into Bucky's anger and, his killer mentality? I don't think so. I think they want you to have that intrigue, because that is a danger, a threat, that would be of concern. Because even Falcon's like, do you really want to do that, And he's basically like, yeah, I mean, what choice do I have? This guy can tell us what we need to know. And I think they're going to touch on that. And that's going to be a point of interest for episode 3, I'm sure. And what I do like, again, is they're not wasting no time. The storyline is moving fast. Because for episode 3, we're going to get right into seeing Zemo. These are longer episodes, too. We're talking like, I think episode 2 is close to an hour. Episode 1 was 46 minutes. So there you go. They're able to really get a lot more done. And I was actually ticked off, man. I mean, I couldn't believe that was the end of it. Him saying, we're going to see Zemo, And then next thing, I was talking to my daughter or something. Next thing I looked, they were showing credits. I'm like, God dang, that's it? I mean, I didn't expect him to go see Zemo in this episode, but I just thought we would get him to, I just thought there was going to be more to it. I thought there would at least be a few more minutes. So great episode. Great episode. This one I'm basically giving like a 9. I mean, well, I guess it's hard to give it a 9 when I just cracked so hard on that scene with the old super soldier, that whole sequence. So it's an 8 then. There we go. 2 8s, but this one's a stronger 8. It's like a 8.5. How about that? Because the movement of the storyline and the fact that they tried to touch on the racial issue and introduce this backstory into the MCU about extra super soldiers. Like I said, I'm more impressed with that concept of trying to do that than than the fact that it was poorly executed. So 8.5 for a score for episode 2. So far I'm loving the show. I mean, it's a departure from what WandaVision is, and that's great. So now I have my answer, like how are they gonna match WandaVision by just doing what this is. And this is what the MCU is doing, is they are making genre styled content with each movie, each show. So that way you don't have to really compare them. It's like, okay, if I just finished watching a trippy sitcom sci-fi hybrid plus a love story, and then I'm back to action, you know, intrigue, espionage, conspiracy type stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, why even worry about whether you're going to like this one compared to that one? They're two different things. That's like saying if I had spaghetti for dinner, which I think I'm having spaghetti for dinner tonight. Hope my lady fulfills that promise. I'm about to call her actually. But it's like, yeah, if I have spaghetti for dinner tonight and I know that tomorrow I'm having steak or seafood, am I saying, dang, I wonder if I'm going to like my steak tomorrow? You know what I'm saying? It's like, what do you mean? If you like steak, you like steak. Just because you're having spaghetti today has nothing to do with anything. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. I got more coming. If you like it, then please click the like button, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. So until episode 3, which today is Wednesday, so episode 3 is coming back in 2 days. So I'll be back more quickly with my next review. Peace.